Hey, and welcome back to the production of my new track, Snake Charmer's Lair. Um, I actually took the weekend off from working on this, but now I'm back. And I do apologize because I actually just watched some of my early videos and the volume was a little weird. Like, the music kind of like would blow you away, and then my voice was very quiet. So I am sorry for that, and I think that I have that fixed now. Well, I say I have that fixed. Sorry for not having the mic in front of my face. That is, still getting used to this. This is a little different for me, and now the mic's like trying to scoot all over the place. Okay. Well, I think that this will work. Alright, so we will start. Actually, I'm going to start this episode by doing a thing, because something that I know I'm going to do in this thing, I remember the big debate last time was like getting the dynamics of the French horn melody and the violin's melody blended correctly. So I am just going to erase the dynamics data from both of those today, and I am going to completely redo it when we get there. Let's double check here, make sure. Okay, it is completely erased, and I'm going to completely redo the dynamics to that. But first, I'm going to actually fix my mic stand, because this mic stand wiggling around is annoying. Okay, so let's give it a listen. That's what we've got so far, and I hear one main problem in that, and the main problem is exactly what we're going to work on first. The dynamics on the French horn or French horns and the violins. So let's start with these French horns. What I'm wanting to do with these, and I've thought about this, and I'm not saying that you always have to follow the traditional orchestral balance of things when working with samples and stuff like that. In fact, sometimes it can be cool to do things with samples that real players could not do, or it would be hard for real players to do. But a lot of the rules and natural ways that orchestras work, a lot of that sounds more natural and better, or sounds more natural and more correct to do it the right way. Like, a general rule of thumb, and I know this because I actually played French horn in high school and college. A general rule of thumb is brass instruments are louder than strings. And I've had experience. I know some violin and fiddle players and cello players. So, I know the relative volume of string instruments, and I play acoustic guitar myself. And brass instruments are louder. I've been around a lot of brass instruments. They're definitely louder. So, I think I'm going to make these French horns dominate the volume over the violins, but in doing that, I have to make the French horns sound great. Like, I'm going to have to spend some time working the dynamics of it and actually figuring out what notes need, like, the short note accent under them and which ones are okay with just letting the legato handle it. So, let's get started with that. Another one, I really want to get this right. No shame in doing a few practice runs with your dynamics, because the dynamics with samples are very important to the realism and the way they sound. Cool. I feel good about that. I'm going to record that in. I didn't quite play that right in one spot. I'm going to do it again. Alright, that actually sounds pretty good to me. Sure, I know where these accents go, but what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to copy the whole track down. just to make sure I get these notes starting at least roughly the same time. And let's play it through. We're gonna delete some of these. Okay, cool. And what I think we're gonna do, let's highlight all of them. And we will adjust the volume and dynamics of these. Dynamics of short notes with brass, or most samples actually, are controlled with the velocity, like how hard you hit the key, and not by a fader or mod wheel. I think that sounds good. So what I'm doing here, and it's something that I've done in the video earlier as well, is I'm using the short note sample In this case, I'm just using the first note because I want the rest of it to actually sound connected and legato and smooth, like the player not just blowing air through and not re-articulating the note. But at the first, all of the first hits, the player in real life would articulate or touch their tongue to the mouthpiece on the note, so that they would articulate the note so that you would get a heart attack. So the first note of each one of these little phrases or phraselets or ideas should be accented, because it would be in real life. And samples don't always do the best job at that, or legato samples don't always do the best job at articulating the first note, because legato samples are focused on that smooth transition and making that sound really correct. So helping it out with a little bit of the short articulation is it really goes a long way to making it sound realistic. The short articulation doesn't have to be loud in there, and it shouldn't be all that loud. It shouldn't sound like there's a second horn playing short. It should just sound like the player putting a hard articulation on the first note of the phrase. Alright, cool. I think these French horns actually sound good now. Alright, now we want to get these octave violins to blend in under and accompany that French horn melody. Kind of practicing recording in the dynamics right now. Now I know around how I want to do it. Finding that strings tend to move a little more dynamically than brass does. Brass tends to stay in roughly the same place a little more, but strings tend to go up in volume and back down, and they swell up and down and around a lot more. Let's see if we need any pure volume along with just that dynamic fader. Just pure volume expression right now. We may add some in later depending on how the track sounds, but for this kind of track, like, I kind of like stuff wide open. I think that works really well. So the next section, and after taking a weekend away from it, I forgot a lot of what I did in the sketch project or the writing project, so let's give it a listen right quick. so it looks like we have piano melody with some ambient stuff with a few instruments. I think I kind of want to start with these synths, actually. So. Oh, and I have the Project Alpha sad piano, so it's looking like I probably used that. Did I actually go ahead and load the preset from Omnisphere? I didn't, but I think I remember what it was. It's not texture soundscapes. That's the really thick stuff. These texture soundscapes are basically whole songs in one patch, like this. Yeah. You could use that in a song, but not very much else could be going on besides that. But I like these textures playable. I think these textures playable are a whole lot more useful because they're not quite as thick, but they serve that adding a little more spaciness kind of thing. I remember getting excited about one of these, and I think that's what I used. Yeah, Primordial Humans. I think this is the one that I used. Maybe I used it the next octave up, though. Let's listen to the sketch again. You probably can't hear me when I have that soloed. I think I'm just going to program this because it's a synth. I play in the things that are supposed to sound real. But for a synth can just be a synth and be programmed. So let's do this as like, there's 8 bars, so. Four. Okay. And I just want to make this long note. Cool. Okay. It's already got reverb on it, I know, but maybe I want to add a little more. Maybe I want to release the cracking. That is an excellent preset. So for the sub bass, I'm actually going to do something very similar. Yeah, it just needs to be deep and just a long D, so. Okay, cool. What else is going on in this section? Alright. We have some little electronic percussion in this section, so. Go into ultra beat. And why do I always program electronic percussion right after I just made like a huge sine wave? Or a huge drone. Like, program the longest note in the world, and then I gotta program the shortest notes in the world. So it was like something like. And then the fourth one is on an open hat. Tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna actually bust these separately. Oh, it's gotta load up battery. Still getting used to this new Logic update, the way that it loads stuff when you click on it. I think that's ultimately better, though, that it loads stuff when you click on it. Okay, so overall, I want some delay on this. Some stereo delay. We want dotted eighth delay, just like guitar pedals. Like the U2 effect on guitar. Oh, this is what's happening. Actually, you know, here, okay. I forget about that. So, when you just put the Logic stereo delay on a channel, it doesn't let through the dry sound. So, the Logic stereo delay is actually designed to be on a bus. So, this should work a lot better. Okay, and I think that I had the closed hats doubled with these real hi-hat samples from Battery. Do I actually have that loaded? Yeah, so. electric reverb on this? It's important to check yourself when you do a bunch of like processing and effects, and while you're kind of mixing things. I will do a big overall careful mix when I'm done with this, but it's always good to check yourself when you add effects plugins and stuff. Just turn them off and turn them back on just to see if what you're doing is actually making the music better, or if it's just adding more unnecessary stuff. Because it comes as an expense, You can, I actually have made tracks worse by adding too many effects plugins and doing too much to the sound. It's just kind of like cooking. It's like sometimes you need to leave stuff alone and let a certain flavor shine. Like if you're grilling a steak, like you can actually mess up a steak by putting too much seasoning on it and not just letting it be a steak. So it's the same way here with music. It's just sometimes it's good to just let an instrument be an instrument. But sometimes it needs a little spice. So these electronic hi-hats, and my favorite way to do electronic hi-hats, and this was mainly covered in the composition template, but my favorite way to do it is just, I love Logic Ultra Beat for designing drum sounds. Actually, I just remembered a thing that I did in the other template that I should probably do in this one, is adjust the decay and like how long the attacks are. I love Ultra Beat though for designing these like synthetic drums that are just kind of like white noise and pure waves and stuff. But I also like to take battery. I mainly use battery because the stock sampler in Logic, it's just okay. It's not amazing. I don't hate it though. Some people just like despise the EXS24 sampler. It's an okay sampler, and I think Logic users should know how to use it, should learn how to use it. But I like battery a little better because it's simpler to just drag in a drum sound. It has this good browser over here. And you have all this little tweakability for like how long the length of the sample is, and just common stuff you need for drum samples. But some little things that I did in the individual drums, I didn't do that much except the open hats. I have a little bit of just the Logic Bit Crusher in there to give it some of that kind of digital distortion that can be kind of neat, like... That's doing what I wanted to. Mostly it's just kind of like sort of taming that high end, which is probably an unusual thing to do with a bit crusher, but it works. And then speaking of taming high end, I actually have the high end rolled off like just a little bit. Like 14K, 14,000 hertz that's like the cutoff to that old tape style recording would do. And for some stuff, I actually just kind of like to roll that off just to kind of give it sort of that kind of like old music gear kind of vibe, some of that. In a lot of the electronic music, I like these types of sounds are actually made with vintage drum machines like the Roland 808s and 909s, and sometimes Linn drums, sometimes there's one that Obenheimer, or whatever the name of that company is, made. I think ARP made a drum machine. But they were all kind of physical units that were recorded to tape, and I'm always kind of trying to get that sort of, I like to get that sort of vibe with my kind of electronic drum sounds. Kind of similar, like Trent Reznor uses a lot of those old drum machines in his music. And that's kind of what it sounds like. I added a little reverb to just kind of give it a little bit of room. And of course, the delay is an important part of the sound because it's like half the rhythm. And that's a trick I learned, .8 delay. It's like a trick I learned from guitars like the U2 the U2, Pink Floyd, Coldplay sort of guitar sounds that use the delay bouncing in between the beats with .8 delay. Let's adjust some of these, like, let's mess with the length of these hats just a little bit. Compare to the sketch. Okay, so the hi-hats sound a little different than they did in the sketch. I made them a lot shorter in the sketch, but I almost kind of like these a little longer, especially the open hat at the end, because it makes it kind of more of a thing. It makes it kind of more interesting and more different than the closed hat, so it's like an interest thing. Kind of a more interesting sound. So what else do we have? I know we probably have some real... Okay, so every 2 bars we have one of those deep boom drums. And I'm pretty sure it's just drums of war. Okay. So that works. I may quantize this just like very slightly, like 30. It's almost not worth quantizing to 30, but I want these to land fairly close to right on the beat. I want to make sure the first one lands right on the beat though, because I want this to be, I want to tighten this up and make this a loopable thing. So layering some sort of real instrument sounds in with this, so we get this hybrid of electric and acoustic sound. Okay, so now we need the little stick clicky sounds going 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Not overly loud, but. Actually gonna mute these electronic hats while I record these in, because this is something that I may have to change the electronic hats for. I want this to be more important than the electronic hats. I'm gonna record that again. Something happened. Now these definitely need to be quantized. Okay. That first part was right. So I'm gonna just make a loop out of that. This is just a touch hotter than I want it to be. Yeah. Just a part that just kind of blends and kind of. I think that works pretty good. I really just needed to turn the electronic hi-hat's volume down. I do like that open hat at the end to be a little longer. I think that works well. And I changed the reverb to just the master reverb that everything's going through, so that it just blends with everything a little better. It wasn't a huge difference between the reverb I added and the reverb that was already there, but if my main purpose for reverb actually in these templates is to make all this stuff blend together, to make it all sound like it was recorded in one room. And if I could give it a space that makes it blend with everything better, or give it a space that just adds room to it and just adds space to it, I'd rather give it a space that helps it blend. Okay, so the next thing's the piano part, and I was listening for quite a while to see if the piano part ever changes, and I did not hear it change, so pretty sure I'm using the Giant. Actually, I'm really sure I'm using the Giant. I remember actually just picking the basic Giant preset in here. Is that the octave it was in? Yeah. Can't remember if I messed with the controls any at all. I may need to have a second look at that just to see if anything changed. I do remember I duplicated it with the alpha sad piano. Make that set a little under it. Did I play those low chords in the sketch? Yeah. Okay. I just kind of... That's a neat little part. That alpha sad piano is actually very cool for adding ambience to this, because it almost sounds like I have like an extra pad underneath this. Let's record these in. bit of cleanup stuff. And I remember having an annoying sustain pedal glitch in the last project, so let's make sure we have that fixed for this one. Have it start on 0. And the sustain pedal kind of come in. Okay, so after the last note here, let's have yeah. Let's give this just like a loose, fairly loose, like a moderate quantize, just to actually mind a bit of the not really baked in, but I don't mind a bit of the stock convolution reverb on there. It does kind of give it a sense that it's playing in a space, which is kind of nice. The reverb I'm actually using, being it's like Valhalla Room and it's an algorithmic reverb, it's not actually a recording of a room, but it's like a digital reverb. It's like, I actually prefer digital reverbs overall, but because they're more flexible, you can do more with them, and you can get wilder effects with digital reverbs than you usually can with convolution. But convolution reverbs that take a sample of a real room, having just a touch of that on the track is kind of neat sometimes. It kind of gives it a little bit more of a space. And with the noises, I added in just a touch of the like string noise and pedal noise and just kind of rustling around. Just it gives a little bit of realism, especially in kind of spacey stuff like this. That alpha sad piano is really, really cool. Like, for doubling a piano, it adds a lot of space to it. Like, I muted it at one point, and I could really tell a difference. I'm actually going to mess with the tone knob up here, because you can actually adjust on the Giant from soft to hard, and I'm going to see if I can make it a little more attacky, and I might add maybe like either a touch of compression or just kind of have like the LA2A type compressor, just adding a little bit of tube gain. I think that's pretty good. I may take a look through the writing template again and see what I did to the piano in that, because I remember liking the way it sounded in that. I think this sounds pretty good though. And I said this in the writing template when I came across that, like, if you have the Native Instruments Complete Bundle or the Complete Ultimate Bundle and you don't use the Giant, use the Giant. The Giant is an amazing piano. Una Corda is like its quieter brother. If you need soft, dreamy stuff, but for like kind of my general piano use, I use 3 pianos. If I need a piano recorded in a concert hall, I use the East-West Steinway piano, but the Giant is my most versatile piano because it has all these controls where you can adjust like how hard it plays, if you hear noise, if you don't hear noise. You can adjust the resonance, the overtones. It has a simple equalizer on it that I like. It just has like 3 knobs, and it's like the ideal piano frequencies. It's like bass, body, and air are the knobs, and it's just like you turn it up and you get more of that. It's just kind of bass, mid, and treble, but it's the correct frequencies. And Una Corda is the exact same way. They were both made by Galaxy Instruments for Native Instruments. And they sound really, really good. They are very good to use. When in doubt, I tend to use the Giant as my piano. Okay, I think that's this section done. Now I think everything just repeats and adds in strings. I do a touch of looping in the production template, but not as much as I do in the writing template. That actually sounded really good. Why did I stop? Okay, that sounds pretty good. I'm going to quantize these fairly tight because they need to be fairly tight. They're an important rhythmic element. that sounds pretty good. My piano's doing that sustain pedal glitch again. I think it'll be alright though. It's just when I play it from like the middle, there's a problem, and I believe this loops again. I'm more okay with looping sort of synthetic sounding stuff than really natural sounding stuff. Like if this was like a very traditional sounding thing, I may do less looping. But being that this is very synthy and very spacey, looping is okay. Okay, so now alright, I like what this next part does. We get to do these sort of octave strings, which are cool. I'll loop those booms from the wrong place. Okay, I usually blame the copy and paste for messing up, but that time I did that. So. Here, the violas and stuff. No, I actually didn't leave the scratch track going. That's kind of awesome. Yeah, I think quantize of 60 works pretty good for this because it doesn't need to be too robotic, but it needs to hold tempo. Okay, so that works well. I'm actually thinking these strings are coming along a little better than they did in the writing template. Okay, I gotta figure out which one of those it is. Do. Did I do that again? Okay, so gotta get the dynamics right. Pro sampler tip right there. The only thing that really matters is you play notes. To do a lot of fast runs, you could just do it on 2 notes and move the notes around. It also kind of helps with the MIDI latency problems. That note's wrong. Please forgive me, I'm a little not so used to this scale. Okay, so that's cool. Kind of shorten this just a touch. I think I want to add just a slight touch of brightness to this. Around 5K. Okay. I may need to bust these together and do the EQ on both. You know, I actually think that I like that better without being bust. Cinematic strings 2 is the more refined sounding strings, and then LA scoring strings is just the edgy, scratchy attack. Don't get me wrong though, LA scoring strings adds a great attack to strings, and that's why I like it, because without LA scoring strings, cinematic strings 2 would get a little lost in the mix. But, or for like a lead short note thing, like if it was just kind of like short chords or something that was supposed to be in the background, CS2 works great. but cinematic. But yeah, cinematic strings 2 is definitely more refined. Okay, let's see if I'm missing something. And, oh, sorry, I was probably muted just then. I'll put a marker right there that A section returns. And I think that is all of the stream for today. I think I made a lot of progress on the track. And we'll hit it up 1 or 2 more times, and then I'll give it a good mix, and we'll call it good. Always remember to save your projects, and thanks for watching.